In episode 4 of the Sideline Grind, we have Callie Bills, the current head coach at Elmhurst College for women's lacrosse. Callie talks through what it was like starting her own club team as a freshman in college, when she knew she wanted to coach as a career, and what it's like running her own program as a head coach. Hope you guys all enjoy. Let's ride. Good morning and happy Monday. Welcome back to the Sideline Grind, episode 4. Today we had an awesome guest on, a close guest to me. She's actually my first cousin, Callie Bills, the current head coach at Elmhurst College women's lacrosse team. Callie's had a cool path. She didn't want to go to college to play lacrosse out of the gate, decided to start her own club lacrosse team as a freshman. She actually played and coached at the same time. She graduated college. She didn't know she wanted to be a coach full-time and pursue that as a career. Then she, was assistant at a high school and worked her way up there, and then realized, this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Got into the college circuit as a GA and, eventually made her way up to a head coach. So now she's running her own program. And doing great things. So, Webbs, what were a few themes that you pulled from the interview with Callie?
First, Steve, really enjoyed this episode a lot. I was incredibly impressed with Callie, her mentality, her outlook. But I guess two themes that I came away from or kept on resonating in my head when we were doing the podcast or doing the interview that I think our listeners will pick up on too. First one would be perseverance. And, Callie, one of her quotes in the episode, she says, and it's, obviously it's a common one, but something that, when you hear it, you should really think about and listen to it. When you get knocked down 9 times, make sure you get up 10 times. And that's the most important thing, is that we all face adversity or whatever it may be. Right now we're facing a lot of adversity with COVID and shelter in place and whatever, insert all the stuff that goes along with that. And I believe Callie's message and mentality is really important, that perseverance and how important that is as a person. The second one that I thought that resonated throughout the podcast was, and you could kind of feel it from Callie when she was talking, was empowerment and how much that just juices her up. Empowering, and her situation be empowering women, but really just empowering people in general. And, that's a job of a coach, the responsibility of a coach. But really, mentors or any role, if you can empower somebody, that is an amazing gift you're able to give to somebody else. Empowerment is a powerful tool, and Callie lives it and breathes it. And you can tell it like oozes through her blood. So I know our listeners will pick up on that when they listen to this episode. Sure,
yeah. And what I take from that is it's not only her current team. It's not only the girls that are currently, on her roster that she's coaching. She highlights in the podcast how, she likes to maintain such a strong relationship with really any girl that she's coached throughout her whole career. And she's also huge in the community and helping out, young lacrosse camps and different, age groups. So it doesn't really matter who. That's just why she's in this industry. And she has her mindset right that she's going to make others better around her. And that's her priority. And it just so happens that the tool that she's using is through lacrosse. So with that being said, I hope all of you enjoy episode 4 with Callie Bills. Okay, we'd like to welcome on our next guest, the current head coach at Elmhurst College for women's lacrosse, Callie Bills. Callie, how you doing today?
Doing really well. Excited to be here and speak with you guys and share a little bit of my story.
That's fantastic. A quick background. So Callie and I are first cousins. Our dads are brothers. So works out perfectly starting a podcast about coaching when you have your first cousin crushing the game for women's lacrosse. Kelly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. Our dads will enjoy this, hopefully.
I know they will.
Yeah. Yep. So Kelly, during this pandemic, there's a lot of things going on. Everybody's at home. Any words of encouragement for your girls or anybody that you've coached with in the past or played with in the past that's still kind of in the lacrosse game?
Yeah, I think to any of the lacrosse and spring sport athletes during this time, and just to control what you can control and continue to pursue relentlessly what sets your soul on fire, and we use at Elmhurst, we use 1% better every day. And so I would share with everyone that's listening, try and achieve something that allows you to be 1% better every day.
And do you happen to know what you got 1% better at today?
Today, I got 1% better at public speaking. I had the opportunity to present some tactics of the game of lacrosse to high school coaches. And so I gained a little bit more confidence in the way that I present material.
Well, there you go. That's what Adam and I are trying to figure out as well as podcasts.
Well, no, and Kathy, you bring up a really nice kind of theme of, even as a coach, and this is something that your players can learn from, can pick up on, or just even people in general, is although you may not be, or in your eyes, good at something, you still attack it, ferociously. And when it comes to public speaking, I'm saying, and by getting 1% better every single day, before you know it, you'll achieve or get to the points where you're, I don't know, who's a really good public speaker, like Tony Robbins or something. You know what I mean? It's like you may not be there now, but if you work at it 1%, you can get there. And that's a great message that you can show to, your players, but just everybody. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Webbs. So,
yeah, I'm Steve.
So Callie, a long list of achievements this far within the coaching world, and you've been quite a few places this far, really all over the country. How did you start playing lacrosse? Like when did you start playing? How old were you?
I started playing lacrosse in high school, sophomore year. It was a relatively new sport to the state of Arizona. There were only a handful of high school teams in the Valley at the time. That would be 2004. I knew what the game was because my uncle up in Michigan played in high school at De La Salle, and so I knew what being a long stick midi was, but I didn't really know what the women's game was. And so I thought that, the opportunity to play in high school came, and I said, let's do it. It was something new. It was an opportunity to stay in shape. I started playing because I didn't want to run cross country. And the excitement around trying something new really intrigued me.
I kind of wish, I look back in high school, I wish I did end up playing lacrosse just because, it was such a great opportunity to stay in shape and still hit people, especially when, you're playing contact sports. But I do have a follow-up with that. What would you attribute the growth of lacrosse, over the last 5 to 7 years to? Like, why do you think it's grown so much in such a short period of time?
They do say that lacrosse is the fastest growing sport on 2 feet. And I think for me, it could be different for everybody, but for me, the growth of the game is just because it's a fast-paced, physical, tactical game. Strategy comes into play. It keeps people engaged. It keeps people focused while they're playing, and it's kind of a thrill-seeking game. So for those thrill seekers that want to try something new, the opportunities to play in high school are becoming more and more prevalent across the United States, and I think that my work with U.S. Lacrosse and the Sankofa Foundation, and being able to bring lacrosse to underrepresented areas is a tremendous opportunity to grow the game as well.
Sure.
Can we kind of elaborate a little bit into that? I think that's a nice little program that at least listeners may not be familiar with. So can you elaborate a little bit about branching out the game of lacrosse?
Yeah, sure. So there's two silos that I work for within U.S. Lacrosse, and one is like I mentioned, the Sankofa Foundation, and what they do is it's within the diversity and inclusion department, and what they do is they put on these free clinics. It can be 40 to 100 kids, and they have us clinicians out there teaching and instructing, and so that children can learn the game and an opportunity to play. And the second part that I do with U.S. Lacrosse is the coach development program. So what that is, and if coaches are interested, they can visit the U.S. Lacrosse website and sign up for these coach development programs, which really have an educational foundation of coaching and theory and philosophies on the athlete development model.
That's fantastic. And I'm curious to know, with that whole process and your involvement in that, take an example like today, speaking to a group of, younger kids about lacrosse, how do you think that contributes and, adds value in your recruiting strategy and kind of getting your brand out, on behalf of yourself and Elmhurst?
It's interesting, Asa. For me, that's lacrosse is my passion. And so whatever way that I can bring people together, connect people because of the game, that's what brings me joy. And so I don't necessarily use it as a recruiting tool. Like I said, it's kind of a passion project for me. I love sharing my knowledge that I have thought out over the years. I'm no Gary Gate or Janine Tucker. I don't have years and years of playing experience and coaching experience, but I do have a passion, and I think that resonates with a lot of my recruits. It resonates with the administrations that I get to work with and my coworkers.
And what are some of those, I've seen you firsthand as a coach and as a person, obviously, and the joy that you bring not only to the sport that you coach, but, the people around you. And I can only imagine the positive impact you have on your players and your recruits and players that have played for you in the past. What would you say is, like the number one message or the number one fundamental that you try to relay to your players so that not only they can get better as, a lacrosse player, but, as a person after they graduate and move on to the real world?
Yeah, I think what really resonates with me is the word perseverance, and that determination and grit to just keep going.
Perseverance is key. You got to have some perseverance to be successful in this world. So
in and out of the sport too, Stephen, really. Perseverance in the classroom with your academics, perseverance in your personal life and setting goals, and not letting anything stop you. Even if you get knocked down, it's that quote, that saying, you get knocked down 9 times, get up 10. And each time that failure makes you a stronger person. And that perseverance, when you can look back and say, this is what happened, this is how I grew from it, and you become a more resilient person in life.
Yeah, and Cal, you really bring up a point I'd like to just elaborate on or kind of dive a little bit deeper, and it's that, what we do in sports is truly just kind of almost like a microcosm. And that's why there were some of the greatest teachers, because you can almost fit a whole, so many experiences happen so fast that would take years of literally being knocked down and having to get up while you're playing lacrosse or in practice, or showing up to practice when you're maybe sore and tired, or, working through something. And that word perseverance, it's one of those things that you can kind of develop in sport that then just transcends into every other aspect of your life. And I'm really glad you brought up that point, and that's a focal point of your kind of coaching style, is knowing that these lessons that you're trying to pass on and your passion transcends the game of lacrosse.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Adam.
You bring up the I get knocked down and get back up. The only thing I can think of is the Chumbawamba song.
I was about to, I knew where your mind went with that one.
Yeah. That was like
Great song.
I just think back to the 90s, and I mean, I talk like I'm 40. When I was like 8 years old playing ice hockey, that's the only thing I can think of when I think of get knocked down, get back up again. So, okay, let's get on track though. A lot of stuff to cover throughout the interview, and I do want to dive into some of your, massive achievements that we talk about, and even talking with you before this, we kind of downplay the effort and will that it takes to do what you did. So let's get into you're a freshman at Northern Arizona University, and you missed playing lacrosse. You had some offers to play at a couple of D2 schools and whatever it might be, but they weren't necessarily closer to home. So you missed the game, and you decided to act upon it. What did you do? Your freshman year at NAU.
Yeah, so I was, at the time when I was sitting at graduation and still undecided, and you arrive on campus and you're like, okay, who am I on this campus? First, who am I without sports? And sports is a big part of my life. It was the way my parents raised me. Even though my WNBA dreams were crushed when my mom told me I was going to be 5 foot for my whole life, I knew that I wanted to play, and I had that competitiveness and that drive. So kind of who was I coming to this campus and not having a team, not having a sport? So that's kind of what ultimately drove me to say, one, I need this for myself because I love the game and I didn't want to give it up. And two, I wanted to give the opportunity to other women that might be in my same shoes. ASU had a club, U of A had a club, and NAU had previously tried to start clubs multiple times but had been unsuccessful. And so I think when I got there, I started doing all the research, and through student government, I had to apply to be a club. We got approved. I needed to show what needs we had, create an exec board, develop bylaws, constitution, how we were going to run the club. And then after we were approved, we had to apply to club sports so that we could get field time and game personnel and help during our season. And then after that, I did not lose steam. I had a handful of young women that wanted the same thing that I did, that they wanted to play. And so I looked into the Western Women's Lacrosse League, which is part of the WLCA. So I went ahead and did our WLCA team application. And then I convinced my mom somehow. I was 18. It was October of 2009. I somehow convinced my mom to get in the car with me and drive with me up to Santa Barbara for the WWLL annual meeting. Here I was, an 18-year-old, trying to start a club that was, had a history of failing. And I remember sitting in the room and kind of being intimidated by all of the club coaches that, they look at me like, oh, here's an 18-year-old who thinks she's going to start a club. Two, here's a person that's coming from an institution that hasn't had a team be successful. So yeah, I was really nervous, but I came on a mission, and definitely took some heat from the coaches during the conversation that were in the room. But it kind of gave after that meeting, it kind of gave the quote, "They tried to bury us, but they didn't realize we were seeds," a whole new meaning for me.
Yeah.
And so I took that and I ran with it. So that was freshman year, and then sophomore year was pretty positive. We had about 12, 15 girls coming to practice regularly in the fall, and we didn't get the best of time. We got a 6 a.m. practice, but we were lucky to have a volunteer coach who also worked on campus, and that was the only time that he could, come without conflict, and that we could use the field. So that spring of 2011, I had applied for provisional membership in the WWLL. We were voted yes. And then about a week before
were you nervous at all there that vote wouldn't go through, or did you kind of have to be a politician there and go like almost like the Ozarks, where you're going out there and you're like knocking on doors and trying to convince coaches like to vote yes for you?
Yeah, no, I think that there was enough folks in the room that were supportive of us and wanting to start a team, and for me to show up to the meeting 2 years in a row, I think that they realized, okay, maybe she does.
Yeah, she's serious.
She's serious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did have support, and luckily I had, one of my old coaches from high school had connections with the ASU club coach, and so just by, persevering and pushing through and saying that this was going to happen no matter how long or how hard the process was, that we were going to make it happen. So yeah, that spring, 2011, week before, we had about 4 girls show up to practice. And I remember that early, bitter, cold February morning with our coach, Phil. And I'm not going to lie, you guys, I was in tears. At that point, I felt like a failure. I had worked 2 years to put together this team, and I look back, and obviously I'm very grateful for that failure, again, because it made me a stronger, more resilient leader that I am today. And we had practice. We went out and had practice, the 6 of us, Mike and Rhonda, and that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, Callie, would you say that was, out of those 2 years, I mean, obviously starting something that has traditionally not been successful or failed in the past. So not only do you have just a history, the program in school already has a history of, I guess, not having it work out. So you're not only fighting that battle, you're fighting, your internal battle of maybe even moments of self-doubt, or again, the theme of this podcast will probably be perseverance. And would you say that year 2, I believe that's what you said, year 2, that practice where there's 4 people, that's got to be one of the hardest, like you said, was that a moment that sticks out to you as where you really had to kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you're going to practice what you preach, this is where it starts type deal?
Absolutely. And I think that part of it was, I knew that you mentioned the word self-doubt, and I think we all, as coaches, especially when we're starting out in our careers, we all have some piece of self-doubt in us. But I think I let myself sulk for about 30 seconds before I was like, all right, when's the next recruiting opportunity? How do we get more dedicated girls? How can I make this better? Is it changing the practice time? So you start thinking of solutions, and so yeah, pull myself up, and it's not to say I didn't do it alone. I had mentors and support from my family that, they knew I was passionate about it, and they were going to help and support me in whatever way they could. So I think that's another big point is you're not alone. There's a whole coaching community that, and mentorship that can boost you and support you and really show you, true grit. And them leading by example really allowed me to say, okay, let's do it again. That's not going to knock me down.
And that's awesome, Callie. It's a testament to who you are as a person. And it's cool to be able to, experience that, firsthand and seeing your success. So Callie, speaking with you, I know that the head coach eventually left. And by your junior and senior year, you were kind of wearing many hats. So you were playing, obviously, you were the head coach. and then also kind of managing the team. So the recruiting aspect, the scheduling, the financial aspect of it. Using that experience, what do you take from that and kind of now apply it to your life as a head coach for an actual college team?
Yes, I think this question has a lot to do with time management. So as you mentioned, the playing, the coaching, and taking on a leadership role during the early practice, the early years of practices. It was a really time management. And mind you, I was also going to school full time. Also held a small job on campus within campus rec. So time management really took a forefront in how I handled the transition. But I and I knew I wanted to coach early on. After Phil left, it was when we didn't have anyone, we put a Craigslist ad out. No one was taking the bait. I had an injury early my junior year. So that's when I kind of decided that I wanted to coach, that I wanted to keep involved in the game. I loved playing, don't get me wrong, but I loved that I could teach and give back to the game and give other women knowledge that I knew about the game at the time. And so I do definitely still use those skills that I learned as I was going through school. It's very similar now. I not only running a program, but I am working on my master's and working for U.S. Lacrosse. So like you said, a lot of hats all the time. That hasn't stopped. But really managing my time and being able to focus on giving back to the game has really been a big part of that time that I spent at NAU.
Yeah, and Callie, it sounds like with you, it's like you do get a lot out of or you put a lot into it. There's, absolutely no question to that. You've given almost all of your energy and time and everything and focus to getting this program up and running, to being sustainable. You talk about time management. I guess my question is, was that something that you've always been able to do, or something that you're trying to get 1% better at every day? You get what I'm saying? I guess I'm not very good at time management. I have to work at time management. Like I have to very consciously be aware, or else my mind goes 1,000 different ways if I don't have like a good time management skills. So I'm just kind of curious, how are you naturally wired?
There's a quote that I live by, and that's wake up early every day so that while others are still dreaming, you can make your dreams come true. And that's kind of been a big part of my time management is seize the day, carpe diem, wake up, take care of business, and get done what needs to get done, and celebrate that after the fact. So not being complacent and really taking care of the tasks that need to get done that day, and really knowing what can wait and what can't.
Sure.
I think that's a big part of time management. I put my recruits first. Time with them.
Where do you prioritize your time, right? Your focus.
Yeah, right now, especially during this time, is really my girls, my current team, and making sure that they know that I'm here for them, and having a connection with your team as a coach, and the relationship that you have with your student athletes is really what drives coaches. And it's what I'm missing the most right now. And so that's what I'm spending my time on is really, being there for my players, being there for my recruits, and also being there for myself and self-care and self-time. And allowing,
super important. That's something that's kind of lost. Yeah.
Absolutely. Carve out an hour of your day. My calendar starts at 6 a.m. and it goes till about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
That was going to be my question. I was kind of curious of when does your day get going? If you're out there carpe and the diem. What time does that carpe and start? You know?
Well, it depends who you ask. My parents will say that it's carpe diems around 7 o'clock, but for the most part, it's up and early when the whole house is up right now. So,
Sure.
yeah, I am a morning person. I like to get up. I like to have my time, my morning time, and then I attack the day.
That's great. Yeah, I am definitely not starting my day at 6 in the morning, so kudos to you. Kelly, I do have a question. You did mention that the majority of your time is ensuring that your girls are in a good spot. What kind of recommendations or what are you doing right now that you've kind of found success with and got a good response out of your girls that maybe other coaches out there listening might want to adopt, or even players that are listening might be able to use for their own selves?
Yeah, so we did a little bit over this semester during this strange time. We went into some programming with a book called Who Moved My Cheese? I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's about change and dealing with change, and it gives you an example of different ways that people deal with change, and it we used it as a reflection tool, and how do we not only change during this time, but how do we handle change in our lives and our futures. And so that's one of the things that we've been doing. And then we're also working on a legacy project. So I had the girls all write themselves a letter to their future self, as well as a legacy letter to the future team. And what kind of legacy that they wanted to leave behind. So we're working on, self-reflection, how do we deal with change, but also looking forward and looking, excited to bring in our new recruits and excited to start our climb all over again. Our theme this year was climbing the mountain, and we had a little bit of an avalanche this season, but once the snow melts, we're going to start climbing again.
Whoa.
Right. It's going.
You playing with words.
You fall down and you get back up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's even better when you're in the mountains, because you get to enjoy the peaks and the valleys.
Dang, you must have wrote all this stuff down before the call, because
No,
I did not remember you being this witty. Yeah, jeez.
I get it from my brother. Get that wit from my brother.
Don't give him the credit. So Callie, let's so you graduated, you're out of NAU, and you were doing, a few different things. You weren't sure, that coaching was 100%, obviously it was a passion, but it wasn't necessarily a career yet. So you were working as an assistant coach and the head JV coach at Chaparral High School.
Yep, that's right. Shout out Firebirds.
There you go. I was curious if you can, touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, great question, Stephen. So I think the first thing that comes to mind with those questions, and my time at Chaparral and my time with the club here, Desert Heat, was really about, I kind of used coaching as just like a side gig. I was working full time as a physical therapy assistant, or technician, excuse me, and then doing some sports performance coaching at the same facility. So, working full time, and then I would have my afternoons at practice with Shap, and during that time, I really learned, how to coach. I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have to run a club. I didn't have to make sure vans were available for travel. I really just got to coach and build the relationships with the girls at the time. And that's when I truly fell in love with coaching, and realizing that, hey, I might be good at this. This might be my calling. And so it wasn't until I had connected with a friend of a friend through the center that I was at, and he had told me that there was a program in Belleville, Illinois, and they were just starting, and they were looking for a coach. And And Adam, there's that word, self-doubt. I was like, oh, I just graduated. I'm not ready to start a college program. Like, I can't do it. There was that definite self-doubt. And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a physical therapist. I said, my education is hugely important to me, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. I'm a firm believer in the Lord, and he was slamming that PT door shut on my face 100 times. So I finally listened. And in 2018, I called that same friend of a friend, and I said, hey, do you know anything in the collegiate circuit that's open? GA, assistant, first assistant, second assistant, whatever connection you had. And it came full circle. I ended up at Lindenwood University Belleville, that same program that they were starting back in 2013, 2014. So pretty exciting. I got the GA shift and was ready to start my college career.
There you go, that GA life. Adam knows that one well. I didn't mean that negatively. I just meant like Adam has been at GA.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what? I don't know where you're going with that one. No, you know what it is? It's just like it goes to show, like you have to earn it, and you have to. You talk about the time discipline, the desire, the want, again, perseverance. There's days where the days are long and the nights are short, I guess, as they say. But I'll let Steve continue on. But yes, sure. Commend all the graduate assistants out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. That's where the journey begins.
You have to be willing to put in the work. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Embrace the process. Learn from everyone you can. Those sleepless nights, and then you will love the process. You'll love what the process produces. You just have to embrace it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What it is.
That's kind of what we're going through right now with this podcast. Episode 4. We're just kind of figuring it out, and it's fun. It's a new journey that you get to do each week. So agree with you on that. But back to you, the important part of this interview. You did spend a good amount of time, at that high school. I'm curious to know, you kind of said you found yourself and knew that coaching is what you wanted to pursue moving forward. So I'm curious to know what kind of gave you confirmation? Like, was there a specific, event that took place or something that happened while there where you're like, yep, this is definitely what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm full on going to pursue coaching moving forward?
I wouldn't say that there was an exact moment that I knew I wanted to pursue collegiate coaching. I had a great mentor in Jessica Barden. She was my coach when I played back in high school, not for the high school, but the club. And I got to be a co-coach with her and learn from her and learn her ways, so to speak. Not necessarily the tactics. I had been studying the game and love the game, love the tactics of the game, but just the way that she was confident in her coaching and her communication with the girls, and she's got more state championships under her belt than any other coach in the state of Arizona. And so I felt very fortunate to, one, have a state championship my first year as a JV head coach. And then under her tutelage, I garnered 2 state championships under her. So I do think that the mentorship she gave me really allowed me to grow and gave me the courage to say, I can do this, and this is what I want to pursue.
And that's awesome. I wasn't aware about all the rings, probably running out of fingers for all those success.
Not quite.
Yeah. So you did mention, obviously mentorship's huge for all of us as we try to grow in whatever we're trying to do, whether it's work, sports, family, etc. Do you have, one specific thing that you use now that you kind of learned from her and, you found great success with your players along the way what you learned from that mentorship?
Yeah, I would say that probably the number one thing is honesty. From the little moments of substitutions to the big moments of making cuts. I'd say being honest with players about where they stand in your program, where you see them going in your program, and helping them to reach their full potential. And she did a really good job of teaching me how to unlock young girls' potentials, and that was a big takeaway that I still use today in my recruitment process. Honesty and this is where I see you. This is the mission. This is the vision of our program, and so that's something that I have carried with me all these years from my time at Chaparral.
That's awesome. And a follow-up to that, though, is, do you kind of have like one experience that you can dive into about, unlocking the potential of your players? Like, obviously, each player is different and they have different mindsets and goals individually. But do you have something specifically that you can kind of zone in on for the viewers listening that might want to, use that same type of methodology?
Yeah, if I can fast forward in my career, I'm going to bring up, one of my experiences in the collegiate circuit, and having a young lady who didn't necessarily think that she had skill, didn't necessarily think, she had that word that Adam used earlier, that self-doubt, and I don't necessarily know her previous coaches, but really showing her that you can do anything that you set your mind to, and really focusing on her work in the weight room translated to the field, her character translated to her leadership, and so I think all of those experiences that she had in our program, and me being able to challenge her and push her to help her realize her potential, far outweighed any self-doubt that she had at the end of our time together.
Kelly, it brings up a word that is kind of jumped out to me just inside my head when you're speaking, was empowerment. And sometimes our greatest fault is knowing, there's probably a famous quote there that's like, we don't realize our own true potential. And there may have been things along the way in life that have, hindered that or didn't promote that. And it sounds like, that's a huge part, if not the number one part of your coaching philosophy, is empowering your players to not only be the best they can be on the field, but off the field. And I guess my question to you would be, do you maintain a close relationship with the girls you've coached along the way? Are you still in contact with a lot of them? Is that something that's important to you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely a relational coach, and it's not just the 2, 3, 4 years you're going to spend in my program. As coaches, we have the opportunity to make an impact on their lives, not just during the time that they're on our field, but in their lives. And so I do maintain a pretty close relationship with the majority of my players from my previous coaching experiences. And that's something that gives me joy. And it really, mentoring and empowering young women gives me purpose. Like I said, it fills my life with joy, and that's, I think some coaches lose that, after years and years. But I definitely think that for me, that's one of the most important things is really maintaining those relationships and impacting them, not just, like I said, not just while they're, at my institution, but through life.
And I can see that. I've obviously known you for a little while, and you're a very lovable person, and I'm speaking this honestly, not just from your cousin or having you on from a podcast, but as a recruit coming out of high school, I have no doubt that you're not just saying this or talking, about the benefits of playing under you just to attain recruits, that you're actually practicing what you preach. So if you've played for Cali or might be playing for her in the future, it's worth it. I can tell you that much. Sorry, pumping your tires a little too much there.
Thanks, Stevie. Getting a little teary-eyed over here.
Yeah. Okay, let's stay on track. So back to Lindenwood. You were a GA for a little bit, and then you moved to the head coach in around 10 months, which is kind of absurd.
3 months.
For 3 months?
Yeah.
Sheesh. What was that, experience like in terms of your day to day? You're a GA kind of doing, the grunt work, for the team, and now you're kind of the head of the team. What was your mindset like, and did you feel overwhelmed, and what were like the first things that you thought that you needed to do right out of the gate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that I'd like to say about that is someone believed in me. The athletic director, he pulled me into his office and he's like, I know you can do this. And so obviously starting as a GA, I was just getting back into the collegiate circuit. And I wasn't going, I was having to go back to school. So it was going to be NAU all over again, the grind. And I was ready for that. And then all of a sudden it became everything. And I think that, his trust in me and his, he empowered me to be successful and set me up. And he never let me be on a island, so to speak. He was always there wading in the water with me during the hard times. And so,
Callie, can we give a shout out to that AD? Because that's pretty awesome, right? With just, again, empowering you, just like you empower your players. This person, had to make a change. They saw potential in you. They knew that by handing the keys, metaphorically over to you, that the car was in great hands. And then just, said, hey, run with it. I trust you. What was the name of that athletic director?
Yeah, that's going to be Ryan Kaiser, who is now at College of DuPage up in the Chicagoland area.
Nice.
So I feel really fortunate that I had a mentor in him, and he believed in me. And like you said, he gave me all the tools I needed to be successful. And it was just that opportunity alone that opened my doors, opened the doors to collegiate coaching. And in that moment, that first week of practices, that, going into fall ball, I knew I could do it. I said, this is absolutely what I'm meant to do. And PT, as much as I wanted it, it was like, the Lord put me exactly where I needed to be for the players at the time, for myself, to grow professionally and personally.
That's great. And you mentioned, not on the current interview, but doing a little research, they had their best year ever as your first year as a head coach, correct?
Yes, that is true. Best season in program history, my first year at the helm.
That's great. But, not to get back on kind of that self-doubt train and the perseverance train, but, you had mentioned previously that the program then was shut down, and kind of the whole campus in general was kind of closed. So you're kind of back to square one. What were some things that you did at that moment? What was kind of going through your mind, and how did you kind of pick yourself back up and kind of attack the grind of finding your next gig?
Yeah, so I definitely think that I allowed myself to process. Definitely gave myself some time to just kind of understand what was happening. Not only was I losing my program, but the school was due to close the following May. And my first thought was, well, what are my players going to do? Where are they going to go? How can I help them transition? Do they want to keep playing? Do they, do they need help looking for a new home? What are their education options? What credits transfer? So all of those things started to pop into my head first, the self-processing and then finding homes for my girls. And then I let myself cry for about 30 seconds, just like I did back in 2011. And then I said, okay, let's do it. I knew that I wanted to be in college coaching, and I knew that I could make an impact on whatever program that I was going to land at next. And so I put in about 35 applications. There was a lot of movement last year, which was awesome. It was a blessing for me because I looked into every opportunity. I looked into Division I assistant positions. I looked into Division II assistant positions, head coaches of both NAIA D3 and D2. So I also looked into GA positions. I was willing to, well, like Adam said, I'm willing to put in the work. So I wasn't afraid to go backwards at that point. But
You're incredibly humble, right? You would be able to take whatever is out there just to keep this momentum going, right? I guess.
Absolutely.
Sometimes ego gets in the way, I guess, and it's nice that you're just saying, you let your ego go, and you just kept on. You said, whatever, let's just go.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's one of my coaching, points of my coaching philosophy is be humble and hungry at the same time. You can strive for greatness, but also, be humble about the opportunity that you're given, and Kaiser really gave me that opportunity, and I didn't want to let him down. I knew I could do it, so I was willing to go anywhere, pick up and move. It was just me and my dog, so we were like, let's go. Here we go. So
and you ended up at Elmhurst.
And then I ended up in Elmhurst. Yeah, so I flew out, and about a week after my ankle reconstruction surgery, and so in the midst of that, I was looking for jobs and, showing up to these interviews with a boot and crutches and thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to think that I can't even walk on a field right now, let alone coach. But I landed at Elmhurst, and here I am today.
You had an awesome cousin that helped you move in. Let's not forget about that part.
I did. I had an awesome Bills boys, Stephen and Matt, helped me move in. And actually, Johnny was really instrumental too. And I know you guys have talked about him on your podcast a little bit, and hoping one day I can listen to him on here.
Yeah, he'll be on.
But no, good. Shout out to Johnny, who I remember I was at one of my interviews, and I had gotten in my rental car right after. It was a D1 assistant position, and he's like, just gave me some sound advice and really just said, you have to do what's best for you, and you can't climb a ladder while you're standing still, and it's a grind. And so I really, all three of those boys helped me out last summer.
Yeah. We're really talking Johnny up. You better not let up on the interview.
It helps to have a cousin that's in coaching.
Yeah, sure. So let's get to Elmhurst. I know we're kind of running short on time here, which is fine. But I do want to touch on just a few things. So you get to Elmhurst, and it's kind of your first program that you were the head coach right out of the gate. So it's kind of new, at Bellevue or Lindenwood, you were able to kind of ease into it, at least from a GA spot. You had some time to kind of understand what's going on, but Elmhurst, you kind of just jumped right into it. As a head coach, what kind of are the three things you would say, or one or two things that you kind of think that you need to attack right away once you get on campus? Is it recruiting? Is it getting in touch with the girls? Is it, understanding?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything else?
I think all of it's important. Coming in as a new head coach, and you want to kind of get a feel for the team culture, and that's hard when you're hired in the summer and they're all over the place. But just trying to start building those relationships. So absolutely meeting the team, getting a feel for campus culture, getting to know the various departments that you're going to be working with. So, coaches work closely with financial aid, coaches work closely with admissions, student life, the counseling programs, so just getting to know people on campus that I knew that I would have to have on call, so to speak, to be able to start rebuilding.
Sure.
So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is definitely getting my name out there in the local community. I'm a big community service buff. I think giving back to the community is just one of the most important aspects. Not only is it a team building activity, but I'm all about good character. Live and play with good character. That's on and off the field. So getting myself involved in the community, doing clinics, visiting high schools, and really just letting them know that, hey, new head coach, here's the vision, here's the mission, and then going from there. The third most important thing is setting some goals. You have to set goals. SMART goals are my favorite: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. So definitely setting goals for the program, setting goals for individual players, and then ultimately setting goals for myself as a coach, and my expectations of myself, and being flexible. When you get into your 2-3 years, and got to reassess those goals, and it might look different, but being flexible and being willing to modify your goals, I think, is also very important. It also depends on your recruiting classes. When you tackle the recruiting side, is what do you need versus what do you want? What are you looking to build? So all of those things go through your head the first 90 days.
Sure. And that makes sense. I can only imagine it's a lot to take in right out of the gate.
I'm sure you're getting a lot of sleep those first 90 days.
Yeah.
There's not a lot on your plate or anything.
Yeah. So Callie, one last question just to close us out. You did mention mentorship, and you've had a lot of, bumps in the road, but I would like to ask, what's the most influential advice you've gotten this far in your coaching career? Like, what's the one statement that you kind of live by, that you not only keep for yourself, but, will onto your players as well?
Be yourself. Be authentic. I think those are very powerful guiding principles, not only in my life, but in my coaching and what I would want my players to strive for. Be yourself, be authentic, and you can't go wrong.
That's some powerful stuff right there, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I love it.
What I love about it too, it's not rocket science, right? It's
right.
Sometimes we overcomplicate life, and it's so simple, really, what the answers are, what needs to be done. If you want to get better, work at it. If you want to be nice to someone, you have to be nice. You have to work on being nice for them. I mean, it's like, it's not hard, but it's sometimes that's what a coach is a person that shows you the way and just kind of maybe helps you look at your flaws, but then also helps you polish those flaws a little bit, I guess. So very, very good advice, Callie.
Yeah.
So definitely, you need the failures, and be grateful for those. So
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, that's about all we have. Callie, love you. Really appreciate you coming on. And we're really looking forward to your journey. If we're obviously in the Chicago area, so looking forward to being able to come out and support you and your girls.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and I love the opportunity that you're giving coaches to share their story, because each and every one is so unique and it's so powerful. And props to you guys. So
appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, Callie. Thank you so much for your time, your message, your positive attitude. This will be a great lesson, a great podcast for not only coaches, people who are aspiring to be coaches, or even just people going about their life, but then also recruits and people that would potentially play under you and realizing and getting to know you a little bit better. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Hey guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
It's something I believe in. You light up the night, yeah. got the sun in your eyes.